In this part of 7.4, we're actually going to fill out tax forms. So the first tax form we're going to fill out is called the 1040 Easy form. And it's called the Easy form because it is the easiest. It's for, obviously you can read it here. It says income tax return for single and joint filers with no dependents. So you cannot have children. Another requirement is that you make less than $100,000. As we go through it, we'll also see some other requirements that you have to meet. But this is just for someone who has a pretty standard lifestyle. They don't make a ton of money, and they always take what's called the standard deduction. The standard deduction is something everybody can take, and we'll get into. You've seen the word itemized before, and what that means is that you take specific things in your lifestyle that you're allowed to reduce your income by, but you have to write all of those down and name them and give the amount, whereas the standard deduction is a set number given to anybody who would like to take it. So in this case, everyone's going to take the standard deduction. We'll get to that point at some point where it tells us to write that in. But obviously, at the beginning of this, we write in all of our information. We're not necessarily going to do that, but we're going to start in line 1 here. And it says wages, salaries, and tips. And it tells you where to get it from. And as I've said before in class, I can't teach you really how to do tax returns. The only thing it requires is you to read each line. So this says wages, salaries, and tips. This should be shown in box 1 of your Form W-2. It says to attach your Forms W-2, which you would if you were doing this, but we're not going to worry about that. But box 1 of Form W-2. Well, this is your W-2, and this is box 1. So I'm going to put that $83,600 on line 1. And we'll try to make it a little neater. And that on the right side of that line is where your dollars and cents go. Number 2, it says taxable interest. If this total is over $1,500, you cannot use Form 1040EZ, so that's one of those requirements. I was given a 1099 by my bank right here, and it says interest income, and it says it's $956. So I need to put $956 in that line. Unemployment compensation in Alaska, permanent fund dividends. These are things that specific people get. If you were obviously unemployed and you got unemployment, that's where that number would go. You would have a form that would tell you that. I don't have anything there, so I don't have to put anything. Line 4, add lines 1, 2, and 3. This is your adjusted gross income. So what I have to do is just add these two things together. It tells me that my adjusted gross income is $84,556. Line 5 says if someone can claim you or your spouse as a dependent. A dependent is, for instance, your child. And so if you are someone's child, for instance, that they're filing, you would check yes. But these people here, they're married, so nobody's claiming them as dependents. They're on their own. They're not dependent on anybody but themselves, so they are not dependents. So the answer here is no. And in that case, the next says if no one can claim you, enter $8,950 if single, $17,900 if married, filing jointly. Well, she is a single taxpayer, and so she will write $8,950. Line 6 says subtract line 5 from line 4. That means 4 minus 5. A lot of people do it in the other way, which is fine, but you're going to get a negative number. Know that the difference is there, that this should be greater or usually greater than 0. It's possible to get a negative number, but you got to read the fine print there. It says subtract line 5 from line 4. Again, this means 4 minus 5. And then after it says, if line 5 is larger than line 4, enter 0. 5 is not larger than 4. 4 is bigger. So it's this number, 84,556 minus 8,950. That gives me 75,606. So that's the first chunk. With the 1040 easy, we're pretty almost finished. But that's the first chunk of this. We're going to go on to example 2. We will need this number, and I should have provided that on the next slide. So just want to jot this down, but line 6 was 75,606. 7. Federal income tax withheld from box 2 of your form's W-2. So again, we got to go back to our W-2. That's this. Federal income tax withheld, this is box 2, so 15,884. Box 8 is an earned income credit. We are not going to talk about anything like that. Non-taxable combat pay, election, recovery, rebate credit, none of those. 10 just says add lines 7, 8, and 9. We don't have anything to add to that, so we're going to come down to 15,884. And then box 11 says tax. When you see the word tax, it's going to tell you to go calculate it. Use the table or the worksheet. This is where those come in, which we did in the last sections. So in this case, I'm going to go up here in my tax, and it's based on from line 6, like it says. So line 6 was this number. So I want to find 75,606, which they've circled for us here. And this person is single, so it's 15,250. So I finished that part. But basically what this is, I did my income. I wanted my income. Then I wanted to find out my tax withheld. And I want to find out my actual tax. So, because I want to compare these two numbers. If I had more withheld than I actually owe, I get a refund. If my tax is higher than what was withheld, then I owe more money. And that's what comes on in the next example. So I've already written down the previous lines that we had here. Line 12, if line 10 is larger than line 11. Line 10, 15,884, 15,250, 10 is bigger. So subtract line 11 from line 10. Again, like we said before, that means 10 minus 11. So it's 15,884 minus 15,250 gives me $634. And that's my refund. If we go beyond that, it says, okay, it says this is your refund. If form 8,000, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. If this is not true, if line 10 is smaller than line 11, then I skip all of this and jump down to line 13, where it says if line 11 is larger than line 10, you subtract in the opposite direction. So now this would be 11 minus 10, and this is the amount you owe, and you would have to send a check to the IRS for that amount of money. So here we get a refund, so we're going to get a check back from them. You would be able to put in your account numbers, and they could deposit it right into your accounts, or they can send you a check, and that's totally up to you. But go ahead and take the time now to do your check your understandings. Make sure those are ready for the time we get back to class.